everybody. Welcome to another episode of this Theater Tuesdays series that I've been doing for a couple of months. It's so much fun here at Rachel's Reviews. And today I'm really excited with me. I have actor Matthew DelaFuente here as one of my favorite performers I've seen in the last couple of years here in local theater productions. And thank you so much, Matthew, for coming on the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me. And coming from you, that is a very big compliment.
Well, what we like to do with new guests on the podcast is get a chance to get to know you. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started acting and what gave you what first inspired you to get into acting.
Yeah, so a little bit about me. I'm originally from Houston, Texas. My dad is from Mexico, so my last name means of the fountain in Spanish.
Okay.
And I've actually been performing ever since I was young, but my background was more in dance.
Oh.
And yeah, it wasn't until a few years ago that I was listening to a lot of audiobooks, and I asked myself the question, how does one get to the point where they can narrate audiobooks? Because this looks like it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so I started looking up different things, and in particular, I started looking at the biographies of the people who narrated audiobooks, and I noticed they were either voice actors or they were actors. And so I typed in, I think on YouTube or something like that, how to break into the voice acting industry. And I came across this one guy who said, what I tell my students is rather than recommend they take voice lessons, I recommend they take acting lessons so that they get really good at being in character and telling a story. And that was the moment that I was like, okay, I'm going to go take some acting lessons. And
Yeah.
so I actually enrolled in the theater studies program at the University of Utah. And because I already had a bachelor's degree, my plan was to just finish my theater studies bachelor's degree, which would take me a year and a half, 2 years. And then I would be able to go and audition for stuff because now I could put down that I had a degree in theater studies. But then I got into my first acting class over there, and I loved it so much that I was like, I'm not going to wait till I graduate. I'm going to go
Yeah.
audition now. And so I went and auditioned for my first play, and it was for It's a Wonderful Life. And another fun fact about me, I was not raised on a whole lot of classics. And so I had never seen It's a Wonderful Life before.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so when I landed the role of George Bailey, I was like, who's who's George Bailey?
And this was like
And
a
so
one-man play?
so this one was a radio show.
Oh, okay, radio show.
So yeah, so there were five of us who played all the characters in the play. And but the guy who played George Bailey played George Bailey when he was younger and George Bailey when he was older.
Okay.
And that was actually one of the reasons why I went and auditioned for that piece, because I'm like, oh, I'll get to play multiple voices, which is great practice for audiobooks. And then it was one after another right after that.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's so interesting because I was going to ask you about that because I think you're really good at accents. And so I think that you definitely should keep pursuing voice acting. I think that's something I could see a future in that because I think that's one of the strengths of yours.
I appreciate that. I think I love accents, absolutely love accents. But I think growing up, my mom from Texas, she had a pretty heavy Texas accent.
Uh-huh.
And then my dad from Mexico, he had a pretty heavy Mexican accent. And then my parents divorced when I was 2. And then when my mom and dad both remarried, and my stepmom is from Nicaragua, and when she spoke English, she had a heavy accent. And my stepdad, who, even though he's from the States, his whole family is from Mexico, he also had an accent. So I tell everybody, I'm like, I think growing up in that environment, I didn't know which accent to kind of latch on to. And so
Yeah.
I kind of made up my own for myself, and then I just kind of developed, I think, an ear for that at a very young age. So.
Yeah, well, that's really funny because So we I got a angry review once on Hallmarky's podcast, my other podcast, and he was like, "I can't stand listening to Rachel's atrocious accent," and I was like, "I didn't even know I had an accent.
No, I have an accent. Yeah.
That's news." It's so funny.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people are like, when they listen to me, they're like, you don't have a very, you don't, from being from Texas, you don't have a heavy Texas accent. So
Yeah.
I tell them about my background. But then recently I was talking to somebody in the show that I'm working on now. They were like, actually, now that I hear you speak, I hear a little bit of that drawl. And I'm like, I don't even notice.
It's funny. Yeah. So you didn't have kind of formative experiences like doing high school theater or things like that. It was later that you got on board.
Yes, yes, it was later. Yeah, I in high school and middle school and elementary, I was involved in one way, shape, or form with dance. But yeah, I had never
Oh, nice.
auditioned for a play. I had never um gone to like one of the high school productions. It was actually I saw one high school production, and that was because they put it on for the whole school. Like each of the periods got to take time out of the day to go and watch the show, and that was how I got to see one of those
Mm.
shows. But yeah, I don't even recall ever going to one when I was younger. And I'm like, now I'm like, what was I thinking? I should have totally. And I actually went and asked my mom when I got into it. I was like, Mom, why didn't I ever do theater when I was in high school? And she's like, I don't know. I want to say you wanted to, because when I went to my mom and dad and told them I wanted to pursue acting, my mom is like, that makes sense. Ever since you were a kid, you wanted to dress up as the characters you were watching on TV and in movies. Apparently, one year for it was either for Christmas or somewhere around Halloween, my mom got me a purple cape and teeth so that I could be the Beast off of Beauty and the Beast. And I would run around the house like growling and roaring at people like the Beast and stuff. So she's
You're
like, it
like,
makes
go ahead and starve.
sense.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's really funny. So are you, it seems like you're more of a dramatic actor as opposed to a musical actor. Is that true?
Yes, that is true. So funny story. So for my first audition, right, for the It's a Wonderful Life audition, um, I read that audition, the notice, I read it twice, and then I handed it to my wife and I asked her to read it just to make sure. It
Hmm.
said, bring two pieces of opposing contemporary music for your audition to sing.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know much about It's a Wonderful Life, but I don't think it's a musical. Why would I need this? I read it twice, and had my wife read it. We both saw it, and
Hmm.
I was not familiar with the vernacular of audition notices and stuff. I'm like, and what's contemporary music? Like, what does that even mean? She's like, well, that means two more modern songs. And I was like, okay, well, I feel like I should do this audition. I really want to be a part of this, and this is a great opportunity. So I'm gonna do it anyway. But so my wife gave me my first singing lesson on the way to the audition, and I chose as my two songs "What Makes You Beautiful" by One Republic and and "I Want It That Way" by the Backstreet Boys.
Oh my
those,
gosh.
those are my two pieces. And so I walk into the audition. There's the director and the dramaturg, right? They're sitting, and then the director is like, all right, give us your monologue whenever you're ready. And I'm like, monologue? I thought we were supposed to sing two pieces of opposing contemporary music. And and he said, well, just give us whatever you prepared. And so I started to sing What Makes You Beautiful by One Republic. And I Want It That Way by the Backstreet Boys. And they're cringing. I'm watching them as I'm singing. They're cringing the entire time
Oh
that
my
I'm
gosh.
singing. And he's like, all right. And I was like, um, now that you mentioned it, though, I do have a monologue memorized from acting class. Let me go ahead and do that for you. So I gave him something. And then later on, after we started Oh, actually, sorry. Let me continue on that there. So it just so happens right after that he asked me if I knew what a radio show was, and I was like, nope. And he says, well, a radio show is where people used to put on these kind of shows for the radio, and people would play multiple voices and everything. And he says, and then he asked me to read different characters with different voices and everything. Then he started to perk up, and I was invited to the callback, and I was eventually given the role of George Bailey. But when we actually started shows, I was sharing this story of my audition with the cast, and I asked one of them. I said, did I tell you the story of my audition?" And he was like, "No, but I heard about it." And I was like, what did you hear?" I thought to myself, what did you hear about it? But I didn't have the courage to ask him what he heard about it, because I was like, oh, word
Did,
got around about
did
my
you have like a backtrack, or did you just go a cappella singing?
I would I would acapella.
Are you a fan of Rachel's Reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics Panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night, or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies. Funny.
I still cringe about it now that I think about it, but that was my first audition, and
Yeah.
actually they gave me a chance to go and do the voice part of it, and yeah, everybody was like, wait, I'm like, I read that audition notice twice, and they're all like, wait, that's what it said. I'm like,
They're probably
that is
expecting like Hamilton or something like that. And you're like, nope.
right. But yeah, I later found out, I think part of the singing part of it was they, as typical of radio shows, they would do some commercials in
Yeah.
between scenes and stuff. And one of them involved a singing number.
Oh,
And
okay.
as you
Like an
can expect,
interstitial.
they didn't ask me to sing.
That's really funny.
Yeah. So at some point, I do want to take some singing lessons and stuff, but for right now, with the performing arts, I'm more of a double threat. If they'll let me dance, I will gladly go and dance for
Yeah.
them. But I stick mostly to dramatic acting.
Well, one of the real finds for me with this, kind of thing to support local theater was finding the Pleasant Grove Players. They're so amazing, and See How They Run was absolutely hilarious. I loved that production of it. And I mean, you would just never believe that you'd have that quality of productions in a tiny little library in Pleasant Grove.
Mhm.
And it's interesting. I found the Utah Theater Bloggers, which I write for, their review of that production, See How They Run. And they particularly, this is written by Russell Warren, who's is a friend. And he said, Matthew DelaFuente handles the 1940s American slang well, and the quick back and forth he had with Penelope in the first act made it feel like they two were really old friends with a long history together. DelaFuente had some of the best actions of the evening, and he often made me chuckle with a simple glance or gesture. As the action becomes more frantic, DelaFuente sets a high standard for his castmates in energy and charisma as he bounds across the stage and has his character desperately searching for a way out of his predicaments. So it's
So
pretty
validating.
nice.
So validating. Oh, I love it. I love that so much.
So
Yeah,
how
he's a
did
huge
you get
compliment.
involved in this production and get in with them?
Yeah. So looking back, it was a very, very big tender mercy, because I I knew there was a theater in Pleasant Grove, but there were actually, at the show that I was in at the time, because I was at the Covey Center for the Arts doing a fairly new show that had just come out, like it was copyrighted, I think in 2020, maybe. It was called The Alibis. And there just so happened to be three people in that show who all had been with or affiliated with at some point the PG Players in Pleasant Grove. And there was an older gentleman in that cast who said to me, "There are a couple roles I think you would be really good at." And he strongly recommended I go and audition for it. And the other two cast members that were affiliated went and auditioned too. And so I went over there and I walked into they because they do the auditions on the actual stage there. And so yeah, I walked in and I was given sides to read mostly for Clive, I think, and Penelope's husband. And I don't know, when I got I went up there and I read for Clive, but I didn't read for a good like several bit after that. And so I was thinking that I did not too good in the audition. And then once we left the audition, I actually got a call that night. They called and they were like, "Yeah, as soon as you went on stage and read for Clive," they were like, "Oh, there's Clive." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Here I was thinking I did bad the whole time because
Yeah.
they didn't need to read for quite a bit after that. When in reality they made up their mind apparently from the moment I got up there. So,
That's so cool. I
but
think
yeah,
because Howard and Catherine Little, I hope to have them on the podcast. I think what they've done there is just absolutely outstanding. Really
they
cool.
are an absolute privilege to work with.
Yeah.
So they would tell you straight up, like Howard will come in, kind of get the blocking set up and everything, and then Catherine will come in and help us with character development and really getting into the mind of our characters. They work really well together, and they are just so much fun to work with. And we're,
Mhm.
and when Catherine comes in and does her stuff, she gives us a lot of training that she does in her own acting classes. And so it's just like you get a master's class in acting and a fun compilation of the two working together all in a single bout.
Mhm.
They working with them, and the fact that everybody was in the right places that they need to be for that show. It was a we actually got nominated for best ensemble cast performance for our performance that year. Just everybody did so good, and
It was so funny. I
it
mean,
was a
I saw
pleasure
it
to work
at
with
Hale
everybody.
Theater the next year, and it was not as good. Not as good as the Pleasant Grove Players production. It was everything I've seen there. I mean, I'm not the biggest Fantastics fan, the
Yeah.
show, but they did a great job with it.
Mhm.
But everything I've seen at Pleasant Grove has been outstanding.
They are small, but a mighty, mighty
Yeah,
theater.
yeah,
And I think, yeah, just the community they got being
yeah,
built up there is phenomenal. It
yeah.
was a
I
privilege,
I just
absolute privilege.
saw the bridged Shakespeare there
Oh,
with completed works. It was so funny.
so funny.
It was
Yeah,
so good.
they just picked some of the like some plays that you would have never heard of before, and you're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, all right."
Yeah.
But yeah, that was so much fun.
Yeah. And really cool that it was a grandpa, father, daughter
Mhm.
cast.
Yeah.
That was fun.
And two of the actors in there, so the daughter and the grandfather were also in See How They Run.
Yeah.
And
Oh
so
yeah.
yeah, so they have a good history of working well
Hmm.
together. And then yeah, grandfather, father, and
Yeah.
yeah, the father is also a theater teacher. I mean, so it's great
When you're doing
experience.
something that's so silly like that, I would think it'd be almost easy to kind of second guess it but you have to have kind of confidence in the jokes.
Yes, yes, yeah. There is because when you're doing comedy, a lot of people have this idea that comedy is about making people laugh. And there's definitely some truth to that for sure. But comedy is just so fantastic because it offers just a unique way of looking at things.
Yeah.
And in See How They Run was like a full package because you have play on words in there, you have situational irony, you have
Sl-
physical
yeah,
comedy,
slapstick.
yeah, slapstick. You have the full package. And if anything, you know what I mean, the more true you are to the situation, that oftentimes is what makes it funny.
Yeah.
it's not so much the irony, it's the truthfulness of the situation, right? It's
Yeah.
like, okay, in my case, whenever I'm as Clive, I'm looking at a passed out Penelope on the couch and then talking to the vicar about it. It's the fact that if I act true to that situation, that's what makes it funny. You know, um, but yeah, being committed to the scene and the moment is oftentimes what makes it funny. It's like they really have no idea what this looks like from the outside, do they?
Yeah. Yeah, they're not like that self-aware.
Yes, yes.
Uh, so then you were in Over the River and Through the Woods, and I have to say, I think this is a terrible title for this play. I don't think it tells you nothing about what you're getting and what it's about. It should be called like, I don't know, the grandparent paradox or something else. It's just not, it's a terrible title, I think.
I hear you. I did when I was telling people about, the show I was in and trying to help spread the word. A lot of people was like, "Wait, it's a musical, right?" I'm like, "No, no, you're thinking Into the Woods. This is
Yeah.
over the river and through the woods."
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I was like, "Well, yeah, the title gets some inspiration from the song Over the River and Through the Woods to Grandmother's House We Go, but it doesn't really, you
No.
know, yeah, it doesn't really clue you in as to what it's about." I
Yeah.
agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah. But how did you, so you'd done things at the Covey before. So
Mhm.
is that how you kind of were aware of it and got decided to audition?
So that same older gentleman who recommended I audition for See How They Run, he actually reached out to me, emailed me, um, and said, "Hey, there's a part in this play that I think you would be perfect for." And he literally pitched the play to me. He's like, "Also, you'll get a chance to work with one of the most prestigious directors in Utah County. And then on top of that, you would be perfect in age and description for the character in this play. And also, you'll be working with three other people who have more experience in theater than I do. And I will be a newbie compared to these guys." He pitched the whole play and the whole situation to me. And
Well,
based
one
on
of
his
them
track
had done it
record,
before at the Covey, I think.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So the director was in it at the Covey before, and and actually I think both of my grandpas were in it before,
Yeah.
which they've already worked together before. And so yeah, he pitched it to me and I was like, okay, I'll go audition for the play. And so yeah, I showed up and the rest is history.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And so was that challenging at all to do basically like a New York accent to learn that?
I don't know what it is about New York accents, but New York and New Jersey, for some reason, seem to be kind of like my specialty. Just listening to it a couple times, and I could pick it up pretty well. So I didn't have too much difficulty with the accents. They didn't bring in like a dialect coach or anything like that. I just kind of jumped right into it. And I got a lot of people coming up to me afterwards saying, I grew up in the New
Yeah.
York, New Jersey area, and they sound exactly like like, oh, okay, like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's I'm glad that it's accurate. I just went with what I thought sounded good,
Yeah.
and it turned out to be pretty good. So
Yeah, you nailed it. It was good. I wrote in my review for UTBA, I said, the real standout of the production is Matthew DelaFuente as Nick Cristano. I will definitely be following his career from here on out because he brought a depth to what could be a cliched role. I noticed him acting in small ways that made a big difference. For example, in a tender scene towards the end, he cries convincingly and wipes his tears with his tie. And since it is business that's taken him away, this was a small but moving choice for him as an actor.
so I got to tell you, I was very very honored by that. But I literally went after. I'm like, I just needed to wipe my tears. I just put for my I wish I could tell you that that was like deliberate, where I'm like, yep, this is gonna mean a whole lot
Yeah.
symbolic. I just was like, I need to wipe my tears because I'm having difficulty.
It was good.
But yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, that role actually. So we had a couple things going on in that show. So number one, the lady who played my aunt Ida, or sorry, my grandmother Ida in that one. Her husband had actually passed away pretty recently when she came in to
Mm,
do the show. And so when she's telling me the story at the end that, you know, there was one time I took this trip, and you know what? I didn't like it. I spent the whole time thinking and wishing that I was with your grandfather. Those words meant something very personal, given what I had known happened to her in that moment. And between that and between like my own father being an immigrant, when you get being surrounded by immigrants, and that immigrant mentality, you're literally, you plant and root yourself in a foreign country, right? And then you uproot that and you come to the United States and you have to replant and reroot yourself on foreign soil that you've never been to before, and essentially start from the ground up. And when I was listening to a lot of the words that my grandparents were sharing, I heard a lot of what my dad told me and a lot of what my own grandparents from Mexico would tell me. And so I felt very, very personally drawn to what they were saying, and it held an emotional stock that I previously, never having heard of the show, I did not expect to be impacted by it as much as I was. We sat down and we did that first reading, and we got to that final point of the show, and I was like, oh no, I won't be able to keep it together by the end, because it's
yeah.
it's so personal and it meant so much to me.
Well, I was the perfect person to review this show because I'm a sucker for like grandparents, grumpy old
Yeah.
people stories. Like I love the movie Up, and I don't know, just movies like that about like
Yeah.
relationships with older people and friendships and things like that. And I thought that it was just so like touching and sweet, the bond that you have, and then when you have to say goodbye and you know that it'll probably be the last time you'll see them, it's
Mhm.
just not only the wiping the tears with the tie, but just in general, it was just very
Yeah.
sweet and touching.
Thank you. And my own grandfather had actually passed away not too long before we did the show, probably 6 months or so, maybe. I may have gotten that timeline wrong, but it was fairly recently. So that, along with, the idea that I honestly think, when you grow up listening to these immigrant stories, these people who left
Yeah.
that foreign country and they come and they replant themselves in foreign soil, there is a lot of admiration for one's grandparents whenever you realize they had to start from scratch. And that was the idea I had coming into Nick, was that I believe he really, really admires his grandparents, to the idea that he's like, if I'm ever going to make it on my own the way they did, I've got to go off and do my own thing. I've got to be able to know for myself that I can start from the ground up if I have to.
Today's episode of the podcast is sponsored by W Rated, the podcast where we willingly watch the world's worst rated movies. Join me, Daisy,
and me, Claire, as we break down the IMDb Bottom 100, choosing a different film from the list every episode.
We take a deep dive into the plot, production, release, and reviews, usually with a special guest, to uncover if these films are truly as bad as everyone says they are.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple, Good Pods, and anywhere else you find your podcasts.
Yeah.
Strength that, you know what I mean. And I think out here in Utah, you have a strong family history legacy left by a lot of the people. Um, those original pioneers that came out here, they had to start from scratch.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people inwardly, and especially in Nick's case, I think he felt that if I'm going to be strong like them, I've got to prove to myself I could start from the ground up if I needed to. And that's
Yeah.
where at the end he's like, I wish I could tell you how much they meant to me and how I would continue their legacy. But I don't think they realized that, they elevated me to a life so far removed from their own that they could never quite comprehend who I'd become or how I would continue their legacy.
Yeah. Well, and the
All they
humility
saw
of
was, yeah.
that generation that, like, I mean, my grandfather, he was one of the soldiers that helped liberate Auschwitz, and and he never wanted any. He was just doing his duty in his eyes. He never wanted any real credit or praise, or he wasn't doing anything special in his eyes. And I think that there is something about that generation that, as opposed to our current generation, which is definitely not, humility would not be the first word that I would describe, like TikTok and Instagram and all this stuff, which we all use and need. But it's just a different, it's just kind of a different way of processing things, I think, than we have now.
That was one of the goals that we had for that particular production, is if anything, if we instilled in you a desire to go hug your grandparents, mission accomplished. Because like in his grandparents' minds, and in my own family's mind, it was a simple thought: I want to create a better future for my family. I don't think they expected to realize that simple desire would lead them to do something so big as to move to a completely different place and start over. And for those of us who've never had to do that, that is really daunting. And that's the legacy they leave behind.
You mentioned the pioneers. I always think to myself, there must have been one pioneer that was a cynic. There must have been somebody who was like, "You're kidding? We came all this way to this giant stinky lake place."
Right.
Somebody was like, "What? This is it?"
Oh, I
would love to read that journal. I think that would be inspiring. The one person who's like,
yeah, like, we left our home for this. We had everything we needed where we were at.
I feel like we walked all this way, and we're the stinky lake place.
Yeah. It's like, whoa. Yeah.
One thing this is a small detail, but I thought that the strength of the play was really how it paid attention to small details. Like, maybe you don't plan the tie, but I think when something is well directed, those small details happen. And I, again, a small detail that maybe other people wouldn't notice, but the fact that in the dinner scene, you actually had real food and you actually ate real food. I don't think I've ever seen that in a play where, I don't know, it was just like a little detail, but I was like, that's impressive. Like, they really cared about the small details in this, I think.
Yes. Yeah, the food thing was extremely important, because in that culture that we were trying to bring to life, conversation around food is so critical. Food is critical to the culture. And Robin, who directed the show, her main concern is that we ran the show as many times as possible before we opened. We must have run that show easily 25 times before we opened. Easily 25 times, I would say, before we opened, where it was from start to finish. So if somebody messed up on a line, we literally could pick up right where it was supposed to go, and it felt so natural. It felt
so you ate a lot of spaghetti.
Yeah. Well, so in real life, I this would have been a dream thing for when I was younger, but for some reason, since moving to Utah, I've had to become gluten and dairy free.
Oh no. Okay.
So if you look back, the food that I ate in the show was all the vegetables. I tried to make sure I never got to the steak, because I was like, oh, that's gonna kill me if I eat that. But yeah, so we tried to keep that centered, and it was actually good food. So
yeah, well, and it makes sense too, because this, particularly that generation was also really food focused. And I don't know if you've ever seen Albert Brooks's movie Mother, but it's absolutely hilarious. But one of the scene, his mom is like that Great Depression kind of era, and so she not only refrigerates everything but like freezes everything. And there's one scene where she brings out this giant block of cheese from the freezer. She's like, it's hilarious. It is really funny. And but it's just like that. There was for that generation, there was a real compulsion and fear kind of almost associated, but also warmth and everything. Like food was really important. And so I think it was important to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
You'll have to let me know what you think of Mother. You have to message me.
I
It's
would,
really funny.
I'm like that just got added to my list of this has been one of the best things is I get movie recommendations and I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, do you have like a dream role that you would love to play?
Ooh, okay. So let me imagine myself in a happy place where I can sing.
Uh-huh.
If I could sing, I just recently saw the Scarlet Pimpernel for the first time.
Yeah.
And the Scarlet Pimpernel would be the main guy in the Scarlet Pimpernel would be an awesome role to play if I could sing. Optimistically, my dream role right now, not being able to sing, and I'm like, okay, I could probably pull this off with at least some training, is Beast in Beauty and the Beast. I would love to play the Beast in Beauty and the Beast. So that's my dream role for musicals.
Although I think playing Gaston would be more fun.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I'll buff up myself up and try to grow some chest hair to see if I can play Gaston.
I think you would be really fun is Cosmo and Singing in the Rain. That comedic.
Yes, I would love to play Cosmo and Singing in the Rain.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that would be, and that's one, like, if I could get just the singing down, the dancing, I think I could pick up on.
Yeah.
But if I could get the singing down, that would be a blast to play.
And I think you could, because like Make 'Em Laugh, it's an iconic song, which is his main song, but the range is fairly, like, it's not too hard. Like the songs for Beast are tough.
Yes.
That would be a challenge. Another one I think you would be really good in is Catch Me If You Can. That would be harder singing, but I think you would, either of those roles, I think I could see you in that.
Yes. So this is just telling me I need to get some singing lessons, because there's some good roles in the musical theater world that I love to be a part of if I could be
well, I mean, and that's been good for me. Since I started writing for UTBA, it's definitely pushed me to see more plays and review more plays, because musical theater is where my heart is, but I really enjoy seeing a good play too. So it's kind of pushed me in that direction, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I think for me personally, like, I'm trying to get myself into more Shakespeare stuff, because I really, really love to do Romeo and Juliet and Coriolanus, and there's some fun role. I think my comedy that I aspire to be a part of is Midsummer Night's Dream, and then I do love me some Romeo and Juliet.
Okay, yeah.
I would love to be a part of that too. So I'm trying to get myself into more Shakespeare stuff.
Well, they are doing Romeo and Juliet at Shakespeare Festival down in Cedar City this year.
I really want to go. I really want to go.
Yeah. And I think 12th Night, I think that could be fun.
That'd be a lot of fun
for
too.
you.
Yeah, I just went and saw, they did a 5-person show of a 12th Night with the Grassroots Shakespeare Company. So one of the guys that's in the cast that I'm in right now, he was in The Tempest. So I went to go see him in The Tempest, and then they were like, hey, by the way, we're doing a 5-person show of 12th Night afterward. And I'm like, okay, I'm sticking around.
Yeah.
And
that's so
it was
cool.
really well done. Yeah. 12th Night would be another fun one to do.
Yeah. I just saw in Twillett, I just saw Macbeth this last weekend. It was unbelievable. It was so cool. It was in the mountains in this outdoor theater, like literally basically carved out of the mountain. And there was like a deer that came up while they were doing the thing. So I was like, this is amazing. Yeah. It was
Wow,
so cool. Yeah.
that is so cool. Yeah, I took so I try so I'm trying to introduce my kids to, theater and Shakespeare
Yeah.
stuff while they're young, so that the familiarity is at least implanted from a young age, and it's not something totally foreign to them. And I took my oldest two, one was 7, one is 5. I took my oldest two to go and see Macbeth, and so my second son and all of my kids like it, but my second son was really into Scooby Doo.
Okay.
So we got to the part of Macbeth where I turned and whispered to him, I'm like, hey, so there's a ghost coming up. You got to watch out for the ghost. And he's like, wait, a ghost like in Scooby Doo? I'm like, a ghost, just like in Scooby Doo. And so, and this was a high school production, and one of the guys in there that I had performed with, he was Macbeth, and so I was like, I gotta go support.
Uh-huh.
And so I said, hey, there's a ghost coming up, and he got really really into it and everything. And then right afterwards, he's like, Daddy, that's a ghost, right? I'm like, yep. Isn't that cool? And he's like, why was the ghost bleeding? I was like, he's like, do ghosts bleed? I was like, it totally caught
That's
me off
really
guard.
funny.
I was like, oh, that's a good point. I don't know. Do ghosts bleed? I
Like,
have
this
no.
is existential here.
Yeah, it caused me to stop and reflect. I'm like, I don't know much about ghosts apparently.
Kids are the best. That's
Oh my
hilarious.
gosh, they were the best. But that was a little detail I never even thought of. I'm over here enjoying the acting and everything, and he's like, do ghosts? That ghost was bleeding. Why did it bleed? I'm like, I have no idea.
That's so funny. A friend of mine, they were watching Star Wars, and so when they got to talking about, that this was an actor, playing Luke Skywalker, and the then the little boy goes, well, who's playing me? Who's playing me? And I'm like, wow.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
So you said
Yep.
that you're in a show right now. What, or you're working on a show? What are you,
Yes.
what do you have going on?
So I'm in Dial M for Murder, and it's back at the Covey Center for the Arts.
Ah,
Yeah, Dial M for Murder.
cool. We got to make sure we get that for UTBA, because I definitely want to see
Yes.
that.
It's a good cast. The director is actually a BYU professor. He works in the theater department at BYU. And yeah, we have a good cast. I wasn't going to audition for it, but then I was encouraged to, and then I went and auditioned for it. And then when I saw who was auditioning, I was like, "Ooh, this is gonna be good." So yeah.
When's
yeah,
that playing?
So that runs July 27th through August 19th.
Okay, good. Yeah, definitely will be seeing that. Well, we have some just fun get to know you questions we like to end the
All
interview
right.
with. Okay, first
Yes.
question. What is the best ice cream flavor?
Ooh, okay. So before I became before I was
Oh, yeah,
really
not Terry.
dairy free again, there was this chocolate turtle caramel fudge
Oh,
ice cream where you bite into it and there are turtle shaped chocolate pieces with caramel in the middle. And I would dream about that ice cream. I loved it so much.
that
Like
sounds good.
when that ice cream occupies your thoughts while you're awake and asleep, that's saying a lot right there.
Yeah,
Like, oh, that was
that
so good.
sounds really good. If it's worth breaking your non-dairy limitations. Maybe that's how you know it's really good.
Oh man, I can
Uh,
still taste it when I think about it.
oh, yum. Okay, what's your favorite color?
Green.
Oh, good, good.
Mhm.
Okay. What music are you into?
Ooh, okay. So if I am like walking home from work or rehearsal or something, and I just put in music I really like to listen to music that I can dance to. So I'm a fan of R&B and hip hop and pop.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and your One Republic.
Yeah, I like me some One Republic for sure.
I-
But yeah, pop, R&B, and stuff that I could dance hip hop to.
Cool.
So,
Okay. What is your go-to date night food?
ooh, go to date night food. That is a good question. Let's see. I have probably taken more dates to like if we're going out to eat, I've probably taken more dates to Subway than I have any other
Ah,
place.
uh-huh.
Yeah. So
That's good.
Subway,
You
um,
can you tell a lot about a person through their sandwich order?
the sandwich they order. Yep,
Yeah.
yep. And fun fact, I actually worked at Subway 2.5 years. Um,
Okay.
and I never got tired of the food. Now that I'm gluten free, I can't eat the bread as much, or don't eat the bread as much.
Yeah.
Don't eat the bread at all. Not as much. Don't eat the bread at all. So I usually get a salad there and everything. But yeah, I tried every sandwich on the menu when I worked there. And so
What?
yeah, it was fun to talk with people about the kind of sandwiches they ordered and why, and you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I either get a meatball or a spicy Italian. Those
Ooh,
are the two
nice.
best.
Nice. Like something with a little bit of flavor, a little bit of
Yeah.
kick to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because you get your people that order just like a turkey, and it's like, okay, they're more into just the sustenance part of it.
Yeah.
A little more of a kick, a little more of a flavor to
Yeah. All right. Well, what is your go-to date night activity? Probably go to a play, maybe.
it. Yeah, go to a play or Barnes Noble actually. I
Ah,
love reading, and so and I read everything. So I my book list is never ending. So
nice. Okay, good.
yeah, find the book, talk about it. Yeah.
Which do you like better, dogs or cats?
If I had to choose, I would choose a dog probably.
Well,
Yeah,
we
I
always
love
say
both.
cats, you have to earn their love. Dogs,
Yeah,
just give it.
yes. I think in real life I'm more like a dog, which is why I'm like this is a kindred spirit right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. A friend of mine was trying to give me a compliment one time, and it was such a sweet compliment. He was like, I was meditating in my deep thoughts as I normally do, and I came to the conclusion that if somebody desired to hurt Matthew DelaFuente, it would be the equivalent of punting a puppy on a football field. I was like, it was so sweet and everything, but I'm like, I've been referred to as like a puppy or like a
Oh, like a
dog.
puppy dog.
Yes, on so many occasions. I'm like, they are kindred spirits, aren't they? I love.
It's like you put a lot of thought into that compliment.
Yes, but I do look at the cat and I'm like, okay, I admire you, right? He's a little more skeptical, a little more
Yeah.
careful, doesn't dish it out right away. I'm like, I do admire you. I'm like, that's
The
why you
relationship is
probably
earned.
that's why you're the one with the 9 lives.
Yeah. All right. Which do you like better, beaches or mountains?
Ooh, okay. I think if I had to choose, oh, see, now living in the mountains, I love the mountains. I really do. So I think, and also I could justify it by saying, one movie that I was introduced to that gave me nightmares for a month is Jaws.
Yeah.
And so
One of
I
my
do,
favorites.
yes, I do have this residual fear in the back of my head if I go swim on a beach that there may be a shark lingering out there. um, I just actually went to the beach recently and loved it. No sharks there or anything, but there is this residual fear in the back of my mind.
Yeah. All right. What's your favorite holiday to celebrate?
I love Christmas.
Yeah.
I'm one of those. I do
Yeah.
love Christmas.
It's hard to beat Christmas because it's a whole season.
It's a whole season,
Yeah.
yes. Um, I was just looking at, like, I feel like in our family we have pretty good and solid Christmas traditions,
Yeah.
and we have pretty good and solid Halloween tradition. But my Thanksgiving traditions, like other than the food, we don't have good
Yeah.
solid Thanksgiving traditions. And Easter was the one this past year that I was like, I need to do better with Easter personally.
The the most like Thanksgiving tradition most people have is like usually like of course eating tons of good food and then just like watching the parade or the movie together. It's a Wonderful Life, something like that.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
but you know
Just
exactly
your,
what music you're gonna listen to. You know what movies you're gonna watch. You know what
like a
books you're
long
gonna
movie
read.
that you can fall asleep through stretches and be like, okay, I know what's
Yeah,
going on.
you know the decorations you're gonna use
Yeah.
for your house. It's a very well-defined holiday.
Yeah.
And Halloween is there as well. You know what music you're gonna listen to, what movies you're gonna watch, what your
Yeah.
house is gonna look like. And then you get to Thanksgiving, you're like, okay, I know what food I'm gonna
Yeah.
eat, but what music I'm gonna listen to, what movies I'm gonna watch,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? That's not well defined. And then same thing with Easter. I'm like, a little bit better on music with Easter, and a little bit better on decorations. But I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't have any set like books or movies that I watch on Easter. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm like,
Yeah.
so now I'm going through all my holidays, and I'm like, okay, I need to define better what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, it's true. Like they tried to have that Easter movie, the Hop Easter movie, but no, it's not. No good. So it like most of the Easter movies are like kind of sad. Like
Yeah,
somber.
yeah. I'm like, oh, now some of them like the Easter parade with
Oh, I
uh
love Easter Parade so much.
yeah, with Fred Astaire.
Yes,
Um,
and Judy
I
Garland.
was going, yeah, I started looking at some of these lists that people recommend. I'm like, why didn't I think of that one? Like,
Yeah,
why didn't I think
that's
of
a
that
good
one?
one.
So it caused me to reflect this past year.
Yeah. Well, speaking, you should keep doing Hallmark movies, by the way. Yeah, because
That was a lot
that's
of fun.
my big podcast is Hallmarkies podcast, and we talk about
I
Hallmark
was
movies.
looking at that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was looking at that.
and it's
Uh,
really fun.
so I feel really, really bad because I feel bad and I don't feel bad. I haven't seen the movie that I was an extra in just yet. I
Yeah,
feel bad because I'm like, I should hunt it down, but I don't feel
yeah,
bad because like they sked this is not one of those movies that I've been able to find on DVD or anything like
yeah.
that.
I
So
don't think it was ever released
yeah,
on
my
DVD or streaming. So
yeah. My mom, who has the Hallmark Channel, I told her when it was scheduled to debut, and she went and watched it. And I told her kind of what scenes I was an extra in and everything. And
did she
then she
find
was
you?
well, so she was said, well, there was this guy I saw because when I applied to be an extra, it was asking if I had any special skills, like if I could play a musical instrument or if I and one of the ones that it listed was if I could ice skate. And I'm like, oh, I can
Yeah,
ice skate.
yeah.
Pretty good ice skater. And and to my utter surprise, it was not ice that we were skating on. It was this very dense
Oh
and thick
yeah, the plastic.
plastic
Yeah,
that fits together like a puzzle piece. And
yeah.
I was like, it's not like skating on ice. And the skates that we got were kind of like donations. And
Uh-huh.
the first time that I was skating, my skate actually had a bit of a hole in it that was beginning to rip bigger. Like the hole was getting bigger the more I skated. And so I was skating with my ankle kind of bent and
I
trying to make
hate
these
those
things.
plastic skating rinks.
Oh my gosh. And so my mom said she was watching the movie and she saw this one guy who was about to biff it. Like he almost fell down. And then he turned and he smiled, and I realized it was you.
That's really funny.
So you can see me in the movie. You
Oh,
can
good.
see me. Apparently, I almost biff it, and then I catch myself, and then I smile.
That's funny.
And then there's a part where the main girl and the main guy are ice skating, kind of in a circle before people come and join them,
Yeah,
and the camera's following them on the ice skating, part,
yeah,
and you can see me whenever I go around in a circle there. So
yeah. Well, last question. What is your favorite musical movie?
Ooh, musical movie. Okay. So probably of all time. So this was one that I grew up on, and to this day I still get nostalgic feelings is at Seven Brides for Seven Brothers.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I do
That's fun.
love that movie even to this day.
Yeah.
It's so and then I actually watched the behind the scenes of how the movie was created this time around. But yeah, I love that movie.
That's
Um
one that I don't think that the stage adaptation, because it was a movie first and then they had it for Broadway. I don't love the stage adaptation. The new songs, the songs they cut, I don't understand. And yeah, not great.
yeah, I that story has a special place
Yeah.
in my heart ever since
So
watching it.
funny.
And to this day, I still love that movie. Still love that movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably my favorite. And then of course Beauty and the Beast. I love
Yeah.
Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, it's so
Yeah,
good.
love Beauty and the Beast. I'm a big romantic. What can
It's
I
one
say?
of my favorites as well. It's one of my
Yes.
favorite movies. Yeah. Well, very good. You answered all the questions.
Thank you. Those were fun. I appreciate it.
Well, we're excited to see you. It's Dial M for Murder, right?
Yes.
That you're
Dial
in
M for
next.
Murder.
And
Yes. In the so
uh
there's a movie version with Alfred Hitchcock that he directed. My character is called Mark in the movie, but in the
okay.
play he's actually called Max. So
Oh, okay.
that's who I'll play in that one. So
Well, I will look forward to seeing it. And do you have social media or anything like you want to share?
I do. Yeah, you can just look me up, Matthew DelaFuente, on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. So
All
I'm on
right.
all four of those. Yeah.
Sounds good.
I do
Very
have a LinkedIn
good.
account too, as well. But yeah, you can look me up on all four of those.
I'd like to thank Matthew for coming on the podcast. This was so much fun to get to talk with him. Let me know what you think about all the things we talked about. And please, if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate that so much. Also have the Patreon group and merch store. Check that out. And thanks again. We'll have all of the playlist with all of my theater content, Theater Tuesdays, in the description. And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.